Thank you, Rachel. Great to be back in the Velodrome. I was here in 2012 where I won a gold medal. You may have seen me. I was flying around there in my Lycra. I've retired now, but it's great to be back. I'm joined by Alex, Jenny, and James. Thank you guys for taking the time to speak today. And we're talking about the hottest party in town, the hottest party in ad tech. Imagine that web-based programmatic was a party in a field. We've gone upscale, right? We're going to an apartment-based flat with some nice drinks and nice people. This is what CTV is, the biggest party in town. And we're joined by people who actually are working in the space day to day. So I want to kick this discussion off to describe what CTV is, right? What exactly? Because everybody talks about CTV, but I want to get just a consensus around a definition, and then we can talk about what effect it's having on the industry as a whole. Alex, we'll start with you. What is CTV?
Thanks. Morning, everyone. CTV is open to a multitude of interpretations at the moment, and I think at a baseline, we're looking at addressable TV that enables connected devices to bring the scale of broadcast television to the targeting capabilities of digital. So what I mean by that, you're looking at smart TVs and any devices that connect to OTT platforms that have the ability to provide content that consumers choose.
Jenny, would you agree with that when you talk to your clients and define what the CTV ecosystem is? Well, how do you talk to them?
Yeah, I think broadly that would be how we define it. It's obviously internet-enabled TV viewing, but I think the differentiator being really through the TV set, so primarily in the living room, but through the TV set. And then I think we tend to break it down within that. So we tend to talk about broadcaster VOD, SVOD, AVOD, probably YouTube as a separate element within that. So we tend to break it down into those different categories. And I think it's kind of quite important that we think about it in that sense, because there's different currencies, different ways of measuring, different regulatory frameworks for each of the different elements of CTV.
James.
Yeah, I agree. So we would categorize it as internet-delivered television viewed on the big screen. And to Jenny's point, we would break that down further and say, you know, it's a broad church. You've got VOD, you've got YouTube, you've got fast services, you've got manufacturers. Yeah, that's how we categorize it.
All right, okay, so that's definition. Thank you very much. And we all know what CTV is now. But let's talk about the capabilities, right? And Jenny, we'll start with you first. How you've got your agency's got a rich history in TV advertising, right? So let's talk about the capabilities you had to build for your agency to kind of move into this space. And I'm keen to know this because obviously, you know, there's a tug of war going on between the legacy world and the digital world and the programmatic world, and everyone's trying to figure out who owns what, and you know. But as a agency, what kind of capabilities have you built internally to make this work?
No, I think it's a great point, and I think media agencies are guilty of becoming very tribal. So you kind of have the planners and the buyers, or you have the traditionalists and the kind of digital team, and they almost like fight it out between which is best. And of course, consumers don't really see it in that way. But what we've done at Seven Stars, literally, we no longer have a TV buying department and a digital department. So we about 2 years ago, we merged that into one activation team, all focused on video. So that's basically what they do. And I think we, rather than look at media on a kind of channel by channel basis, I think what we've seen is huge growth in appetite for video from advertisers. And then I know that kind of the Ofcom report came out earlier this year, didn't it, that said we spent in 2020 a third of our waking hours watching video of some sort, which is just mind-blowing. I know we were in lockdown, but that is still a third of your waking hours. That's nuts. So there's a huge opportunity and a huge demand for it. And I think we've just had to kind of restructure teams, retrain teams, and get people to really think video and audience rather than think channel.
Okay, and it's an interesting one to be. I mean, you guys work with publishers and the broadcasters. I mean, what mental shift do they have to make in terms of like the people they bring in to make this work? Because if you think about it, ITV and Channel 4 have spent a lot of money on revamping their whole operation, because we're all fighting against the YouTubes of the world for budget, because I don't want to mention their names, but unfortunately you have to in the CTV environment. But let's talk about, from the sell side perspective and the buy side perspective, what kind of sort of shift have they had to make in terms of resources and technology adoption and data use as well?
Yeah, from a media owner point of view, you really need, by definition, connected TV or OTT, advanced TV, if we want an acronym, is programmatic. So media owners have had to understand how they embrace programmatic. What do they need to adapt to a programmatic environment? And that comes in the form of having people understand ad serving capabilities around how that generates and works with connected TV, understanding how the data flows, who collects the data. Just because you're the content creator doesn't mean to say you're collecting the data. It could be the platform that collects the data. Could be a third-party entity. It could be the app you're using to distribute.
So it's a complicated ecosystem in terms of there's layers of technology all over the place in terms of data, execution, etc.
I wouldn't say, if you're not in it, it could be complicated, but it's fragmented. That's the challenge. There isn't and I'm sure Jenny's aware of this as well, there isn't a one be-all catch for the data. You could be executing your content through several different partners who are actually, each one of those partners collects data in a different way. Now, if you're the content owner and you are looking to distribute your content via connected devices in order to go where the audience is going, fish where the fish are going, you're going to need to understand how do each of those partners collect data, how does that come back to you, and how do you then package that up from a potential commercial possibility? And are you doing that in partnership with those partners, or with those platforms, or with those apps? And how are you working with the distribution network in order to package up for a commercial point of view? So when you're the media owner, there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of fragmentation to understand how you create a package that is going to be relevant to meet the demands of agencies.
And James, there's been a lot of talk around this space around, SVOD is the go-to, right? Netflix and Amazon have sucked all the advertising oxygen out of the room. But there has been sort of a move back towards AVOD because most of us cannot afford to have 10 subscriptions. I don't know about who, I've got 5, but that's as far as I'm going to go. But, I can't afford any more of those, unfortunately, on my meager salary. But there's a shift going on between sort of the AVOD availability, and inventory is a huge issue, right? So the other day, I remember we talked about this in the call. I did some sort of some research around sort of FAST and the the AVOD opportunities, and I went on to Pluto TV to see what ads they were serving, and I stumbled on the Baywatch channel, and I ended up watching 3 episodes in a row. And the script is pretty good. It's aged pretty well, but the ads were quite interesting because it was all 6-second ads, and it feels like the inventory sources, even though it's a bit long tailish, are starting to emerge.
Yeah, so I'd agree. So the good news for all of us sitting in an advertising conference is that advertising, I think, is going to play a greater role in the CTV ecosystem. So I think certainly the research that we've done suggests that the average number of SVOD subscriptions in the household in the UK is 2.5. I think in the US it's 3. So Kieran, you're definitely beating the average there. So
first time you've been above average, Kieran.
That's true, yeah.
You're well above average.
I'm well above average.
In fact, 14% of our survey had more than 3. So you are in the top percentile.
I might have to get rid of a few of those subscriptions then.
So all joking aside, I think AVOD, there's definitely a cap to the amount of subscriptions any household will bear. But I think something like, we did a survey called CTVs for Everyone recently, and I think something like 85% of CTV viewers watch AVOD services. There's definitely incremental growth there, and that's definitely the commercial model that, above and beyond subscription, that looks like it's the one that will drive adoption of CTV. People obviously have an appetite to consume more things than just 2 or 3 services. I'd also say that the good thing for the typical demographic profile of CTV viewers is younger and more diverse. So I think they're more open to that kind of quid pro quo exchange between free and advertising. they've got free email accounts and social media services. So I think AVOD is definitely going to play an increasing role in the future. And I think probably if you look at some of the emerging markets like India, for example, those average household numbers of subscriptions are even lower. So in those markets, I think advertising is going to play an even greater role. So good news for all of us sitting at an advertising festival.
Alex, are you seeing that? I mean, it's quite interesting. There's a lot of new technologies that are kind of allowing, so I call it democratization of TV content, right? You know, it's difficult to spin up a TV station, there always was, but now it's become a lot easier, right? You've got companies like Roku platforms, scale platforms, companies like Whirl who kind of allowing you to bring content in the TV setting. So do you see sort of explosion in that sort of like content-led AVOD stuff coming in the next couple of years that would make this interesting for buyers?
Yeah, I think if you look at the level of investment in advertising in 1080 TV, by definition it's AVOD, it's $2 billion this year. If you look at what's going to happen over the next 6 years, it's going to be around $3 to $3.5 billion. So there's no doubt the explosion of connected TV or advanced TV is driving investment. The real question is how much of that investment is being cannibalized from linear TV? Or if it is, for example, if you go to the BVOD upfronts, how much of their upfront investment, maybe Jenny knows this, how much of the BVOD or connected TV content is packaged into that upfront investment to artificially hold up TV? Because you go to certain conferences or you have certain conversations with agencies and they're like, but TV's not going anywhere. TV investment is still flat or up. But is it? Because are the BVOD companies packaging? And so if you look at pure play AVOD, there's no doubt investment is going, the growth is there. The lowest demographic profile switching to AVOD is 77%, and that's 50 years and over. Everywhere else, every other demographic from 18 plus to 50 is 90% plus are shifting to AVOD markets. So as a media owner, as an advertiser, you're going to be looking at connected TV. And you're going to be trying to understand, how do I get the maximum value out of this, and who do I need to work with? And you need to work with, unfortunately at this moment in time, because of the fragmentation, you will need to work with several partners. You'll need to have a data warehousing, like a LiveRamp, to package that data up so you can execute out. You'll need to work with partners that are able to provide you with ad serving capabilities. You'll need to work with partners who can drive first-party data through ACR. In order to do that, you have to have an SDK. That SDK has to be distributed onto the TV sets. So you do need to do a bit of research, and you do need to understand how you're going to take advantage of this. But there's no doubt money is flowing.
Jenny, you could answer some of these questions. Alex, I suppose, because you're the co-face of this, but you talked about the light TV user, right? You said during our conversations this week, the legacy TV isn't necessarily going away, but your clients are looking to reach light TV users, people who just switch on a Roku or a smart TV and just go straight to the channels themselves. So is that where you're seeing the money shifting?
Yeah, so from our perspective, there's like no question now. That's partly why we've kind of merged teams, that, you know, if people aren't thinking across the whole platform, then they're just going to lose coverage. So the CTV is great at delivering lighter viewers, younger viewers, and you know, people that just aren't kind of glued to the linear channels all day. Albeit right now, you know, the whole TV market is in great health. There is, you know, the biggest issue that we talk to advertisers about is TV inflation. So I think connected TV.
What do you mean by that? Just like the sort of the value of a spot on ITV or Channel 4 is going up?
Yeah, the cost of it is going up.
And that's because of the
it's
demand?
It's mostly demand-driven inflation right now, yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so I think what CTV has done to a certain extent is it's kind of opened up the market. So I suppose in much the way that Google and Facebook have a huge long tail of advertisers, TV didn't used to have that long tail of advertisers. So traditional TV, there was always huge kind of barriers to entry, both in terms of production capabilities and making an ad and then actually getting on air. And I think and Sky were ahead of the game on this, right? So when Sky first had AdSmart, not only did they talk to, people like me about how we can now get, into smaller numbers of homes and reach high net worth individuals and, get that granularity of targeting and things like that, which it does brilliantly. They also went and invested in sales forces across the UK that went out and got, car dealers on TV for the first time ever, and that just tapped into that long tail of advertisers. So
is that really the big opportunity here? Like, everybody talks about shifting budgets and there's a fight over legacy spend, but really what is, if you can make it easier for people to do production and execution and targeting and measurement, then surely that those long tail demand partners will come in. That's sort of the goal here, isn't it? Because we used to have like the big advertisers who would work with the agencies and would spend a lot of money in TV. But really what we're trying to do here is, can we bring the mid to long tail in? Can we take money off YouTube's and the Facebooks, which is generally just UGC crap, right? Apart from the music videos on YouTube, obviously. James, that's obviously what we want to do here. We want to broaden the tent here.
But what I would say, it's not an either-or scenario, is it? I think, that CTV and linear television complement each other. The audiences are slightly different. The CTV is younger, it's more diverse. Linear television tends to be slightly older. So I think it's about how we adapt to have that hybrid approach. So I think, to your point, the measurement bit's the most important piece, because it's how, what incremental reach do we see CTV deliver versus linear audiences, and how do those two things interact together, and how do audiences, what differing ways do they respond to the advertising that we put in front of them. So it's a hybrid approach, I would argue.
But surely that's the underpinning of a data-driven TV, right? It's that addressability factor, right? It's that what metrics you can put in place to make TV just as accountable as other mediums, right? So all three of you talked about the shoppable aspect of this, like the e-commerce. If commerce media is like, an Amazon putting ads on the side, then CTV surely has the ability to kind of do something similar in making it addressable. I want to talk about that, because that could be a key area of growth for this space, particularly for the direct-to-consumer brands who are very, very concerned about the bottom line.
Yeah, I think that you'll find that given as the data providers clarify and as the fragmentation works out, or certain platforms and partners get larger, you'll find that there is the scale there to do these commerce solutions. Because remember, if you're working on multiple different platforms, the data sets may not be the same. You can hit the same audience, but how they're collated and delivered are different. So commerce will certainly come to the fore, and those who have the larger scale will be the ones that drive commerce and take commerce quickly. And you'll find that you'll have programs where you could see the product placement in the program. For example, Netflix are doing a lot more product placement in their programs because they don't take advertising or a subscription model. So you could see the product, out comes the commerce ad, add it to your shopping cart, away it goes, the video continues on. And that will also spread across all the CTV ecosystem, and you'll find that there will be partners who will look to push that creative, and we heard earlier on, the creative solution must adapt and must also accommodate the advancements in technology. And you will have a commerce solution. You can adapt a commerce program from a TikTok to your CTV solution. You can then have a cart that you will then don't have to leave the program. You pause the program, you buy the product, you carry on with the program. When the program is finished, you hit checkout and away you go. So there's an opportunity there for sure.
You see that, Jenny, or are we still sort of early doors, QVC type thing, like, landing trying to sell you a 4-coat and ring this number now for a discount?
I think clients, the things that advertisers are getting really excited about is ability to use first-party data through TV that they've never been able to do before. I think reaching TV audiences that were in decline through traditional TV but are really tuned in through connected TV. And I think the big third thing is shoppability. I think that's really exciting for advertisers. But I think equally the challenge is just the ability to plan across the different platforms, the ability to track audiences across the different platforms, the ability to frequency cap. And then the nervousness is we're going to fall into the same traps that we fell into in Web 2. Whatever it was, with retargeting and the kind of, the
is that, I mean, the privacy thing is going to be first at at the forefront of people's minds. You won't be able to do as much of that, surely. I mean, the PII data will be, you can't use that. Like, so if you think about IPs right now, how long before that becomes an issue? I mean, is that a hindrance then, James, in terms of the growth of the business? Or will we find other ways to measure like panel-based stuff, accelerated panel-based or attention-based metrics that would make this work as well?
So I think, well, similar to the panel conversation earlier, publishers are going to be empowered because their data is a key determining factor. It's not a browser-based environment typically. So publisher first-party data is going to be really key. Manufacturers have got deep kind of glass-level data, so they're in a really strong position to kind of drive the curation of inventory to bring to the market. So I think they're in a good position. I think your question around measurement and panel-based stuff, there's loads of industry initiatives. There's the ISBAR, Origin, there's
is any of it working? I mean, it's all very fragmented, and Nielsen and Comscore seem to be really not doing a great job here, from what I've seen, in terms of making this work. But are we a long way from a standardized sort of metrics that we can work around this medium, or is it still? But would it be more of a customized attribution piece? Will it be like agencies and publishers working on their own sort of like their own currency, or do we need something to work across everything?
Is that a question to me?
Yeah.
So I would say yes. Clearly, I think that the more we can consolidate around a single kind of currency and methodology, then great. I think that it needs to be something that brings the best of both worlds. Clearly, we want TV's always been done around panels, but I think the Origins initiative is quite interesting because it combines the use of panel data, but also the use of publisher log level data, set-top box data. So I think that in particular is quite interesting. There's obviously private companies doing similar things like Metrics, for a company that we work with, but no, I would argue the sooner we consolidate onto one source of truth, the better for everyone.
Alex, we were talking this before. I watch quite a lot of Roku, right? Bloomberg TV is a good example, right? So I watch lots of Bloomberg TV, and they show the same feckin' ad every time. Like, it's some gold. They're trying to sell me gold. I don't know why. Gold bugs. Or there's some idiot saying we look to the future and we buy these stocks, and I go, great. I've seen this ad like 100 times. Is there still a problem with publishers sort of adopting technology to make this work? I mean, we talked about frequency capping and all the rest of it at the beginning of the show. Like, it feels to me that some publishers are still behind the curve in this stuff, and like, an ad server would be the first port of call in terms of frequency capping someone like myself.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the point I made earlier on that unfortunately, because of the fragmentation around connected TV, as a media owner or even as an agency, you are going to have to work with several partners to try and build that seamless, unified ecosystem for your clients. And that means you'd have to work with, for example, an SSP that has an ad server that particularly does header bidding around connected TV solutions, or works with partners like Publica, for example. Or you're going to have to find another partner that has the ability to bring in first-party data from those apps and from those platforms, from the content owners and channels, in order to package that data up and execute it. That means you might need to have a data management partner, such as a LiveRamp or something like that. Or you can try and find a partner that, instead of having 10 conversations, you can have a partner or 2 or 3 partners that bring those 10 attributes together, but only gives you a certain amount of coverage of the market. But it's a more detailed, more accurate, more data-driven coverage of the market.
And is that still a problem, the interoperability between all these things? Like, there's still, the fragmentation is still an issue. I mean, Jenny, you're obviously at the execution side. Is that a massive headache for you, just trying to put all that together?
Yeah, I think it's probably advertisers' number one frustration at the minute. And I mean, that's why I was trying to get this Project Origin off the ground, but that
it's not just easier to
pick. My personal view is that's several years away.
It's not easy just to pick the phone up to the ITV rep and say, I need to buy 4 minutes before Coronation Street on Tuesday night at 7 o'clock.
Only because we've got barbed data, so you could actually do it within that environment, but you cannot do it across all the different environments. You're working with different data sets and different currencies and different buying metrics. So there's just so. Your frustration as a viewer seeing that ad, imagine how the advertisers are frustrated. They're really frustrated with it.
And how do we solve that, James? I mean, what's the solution like? I mean, is it a case of just we have to progress. We have to go through this sort of like these hurdles before we get to a point where actually everything works pretty seamlessly. Because it is a frustration. I mean, like, if these are opportunities, I mean, Bloomberg should be selling these ads to other advertisers. I want to see Tesla ads, and I want to see whatever else ads I want to see, but I don't want to see the same gold ad continuously.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need a common set of standards. We need to make it easy for money to flow into that space in the same way that we've been working, in the display and video mobile space around common standards with things like pre-bid and so forth. We need a set of common standards in this space in order to make it easy for advertisers to spend their money and track their performance. So yeah, absolutely.
So a final question about data, because this is quite interesting. The data piece, the targeting piece, right? I want to talk about what specific data we're talking about, right? So Jenny talked about first-party data, but are we talking about contextual, or is there other areas that we haven't even touched the sides in terms of like capabilities, in terms of like executing campaigns, Alex? Are we still? I'm just curious to know what more we can do around the data piece that will make it work for advertisers.
Well, I think the data piece is improving week by week, day by day, month by month, but the reality is it's still fragmented. As I said, you have to put those constituent parts together to get a full data picture. So you do need an ad server that has the ability to provide header bidding to open up and widen that ecosystem. You also need to have access to first-party data, which traditionally comes through ACR, and that will then provide you the content data, it will provide you the IP, it will provide you the location. So you do get richer data sets, but then you're coming down to scale. So you need to have, as I said, multiple partners that provide you the scale, and then your execution needs to be through 1 or 2 or 3 partners, because that's how you're going to stitch the fragmentation together. Yeah. So I completely understand Jenny's point. When you're an agency looking to buy this, it can be a challenge, and your default is, well, I can use Barb and go to BVOD, but BVOD is a certain portion of the market. If you work on the basis that 30% of the market is AVOD, and that's where the shift in investment is going, or certainly the shift in consumer investment, the content consumption is going, you are going to need to put together some form of strategy and partnership around how you can collate the data and then execute against that. Because it is possible, but it does take a bit of work.
Jenny, you're just going to lump everything into a clean room or DMP, or what do you use over there at 7 Stars?
I think, what do I think? I think just by definition, because of what we're talking about, some of the data has to be at household level, so it's going to be different to the data that we're used to using in other media channels. So, the opportunity for that in terms of targeting, in terms of advertiser reducing wastage and stuff like that is huge. So I think that we can't underestimate that. So, I don't need to see an ad for Huggies or Pampers or Sheba cat food, right? None of which I'm ever...
Or gold.
Yeah.
It's all about gold.
That we're just not in the market for. I think, equally, we need to just be, mindful that we're in a different environment. So we are talking, we're talking to people at household level, not at individual level. So that requires a slightly different skill set in terms of how we talk. And I think the other thing that it definitely requires is, don't underestimate, from an advertiser perspective, the pressure on production to do this. So yeah, data can start to inform us on the type of household and the type of viewing and where we're viewing, and environment and context and all of this great information. But to actually make an ad that's still going to look great on a great big plasma screen in the middle of a video, it's not as easy as kind of changing your copy in Facebook or something like that. It really is big. So, and I think that's another kind of advertiser barrier that maybe we don't talk about enough and think about enough.
You have to look at broad brushstrokes here. When you're looking at AVOD, you have to look at today, and certainly in the immediate future, what can we really do with CTV? We can look at reach, we can look at resonate, whether the ad actually attracts or engages our target audience, and we can look at results. Pretty much that's kind of where, if you're on the agency side and advertiser side, the 3 R's, that's pretty much where you're going to be. You're going to understand how many individual consumers I got to, how many actually liked it. You can measure that in forms of brand uplift or any form of brand study surveys that you do independently. And then actually what the results, how many people ultimately bought the product, took the coupon code, executed, or did whatever the advert is telling them to do. So at a base level, those are the kind of 3 metrics that will cover you for the market. If you then figure out where you want to specialize in and how much data you want to use to inform those decisions, that's when you start building out your partnerships and your technology partners.
But it goes back to that point that you pointed out, James, at the beginning, is bringing that legacy world with the new world, basically. Jenny's point about creative and different metrics that have been sort of native to TV, bringing that into the new sort of data-driven world.
So what's the question?
Well, I'm just saying it's all about bringing those two worlds together, like, you know, the legacy piece and the new sort of data-driven world. Because like Jenny's talking about the creative piece, and we're talking about metrics that are native to sort of the old TV world, and then bringing in the sort of like the data-driven aspect, which is what we're trying to do, overlaying that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a hybrid approach. Like going back to what we were saying earlier, it's a hybrid approach. You're finding audiences across both of those platforms, and you've got legacy and new world targeting levels. So it's a blend of how you bring those two things together.
On that note, I think we'll finish up there. Guys, thank you for an enlightening panel discussion. And like CTV is a very hot area, but there's still a lot of progress to be made here. So all the 3 will be available to chat to you during the break. So please take a chance to chat to everybody. Thank you again, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.